As I've got the full kit together, I'm going to do a quick video. It's really informal, just to show how to use the pressure monitor as it comes. All I have here then is the basic pressure monitor. We've got the included power supply. I've got a pipe just going to the enclosure. The fan's not running at the moment, it'll read zero pressure. So I'm just going to power it up by flicking the on switch. And whenever you want to turn it on and off, don't just pull the power out, always press the on off switch to turn it on off. Make sure it's in the zero position and let it shut down naturally. I've also got, if you look to the side there, I've also got a printer connected, a thermal printer, and that'll print out various things when there's problems, you know, things outside the limits, and when it starts up, stuff like that. It also gives a regular printout. By default, it's every hour. You can change that to how often you want it. But there we go, there's just the start of print. It's just printed out there. We've got nothing else connected, so it just gives us the airflow and the internal pressure, which is zero. It'll print that out every hour by default. We're going to look at this wireless pressure sensor. You can keep adding as many of these as you like to the system, so you can monitor various different zones and have it all appear on the one screen. We only have one zone, we only have one enclosure, so I'm just going to stab a hole in the plastic, put the pipe in, and then we'll have two pressure readings on the screen. So to add a pressure sensor, it's really simple. You just plug it into your enclosure, the pipe, and then you power it up with the included power supply. It takes a little bit of time, maybe 20 seconds or something, to connect to the actual pressure monitor. You'll know that it's connected because the light will go red or green. As long as it's that light that you're particularly interested in, one way or another, if it goes red or green, it's on. And there we go, we can see it's connected to the pressure monitor. So we'll go and take a look at the screen now and see what else is there. We have two pressure sensors on the screen now, pressure readings I should say, one from the internal sensor and the other one from the wireless one we just added. Like I say, you can just keep adding as many as you need. The pipes are in two different places, so the reading won't be exactly the same, but it'll be close. Clearly that code, which is the name of the pressure sensor, is not very memorable, so we should use the computer now or a mobile phone to change that name. The pressure monitor creates its own wireless network which we're going to connect to. So I'm just going to go to the settings on my phone, connections, Wi-Fi, and then we can see there's a network called ZEM. What we'll do now then is we'll go to 192. Oh, you've got to go to the IP address of the actual pressure monitor, which is 192.168. You can type it 168.4.1. Okay, and there's the same thing that we had on the screen of the pressure monitor on the phone. The reason we want to do this is because, as it's a phone, it's got a keyboard which we can use to change the name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the so you can see it. I'm going to click on the where it would normally display the name. It just gives you the default code for the unit. I'm going to change the name. I'm going to type wireless sensor. Click on save. Okay, now instead of displaying that big long code, which is the MAC address of the unit, it says wireless sensor. Whilst we're here, we'll take a look at the settings, the general settings. There is the interval between prints, the default, which I said was 60 minutes, an hour. It's going to print out all these things. It's going to print out, like we've checked everything, all the different units that we've got connected, it's all checked. If you've got more than one pressure monitor being used in the same place, you can change the wireless network to something else. So the default is ZEM, and it's ENC monitor, enclosure monitor, ENC monitor. That's the password. So what you can do is, if you want two lots of sensors connected, you can change maybe it to ZEM2, and then you can change the sensors to connect to the ZEM2 network instead, so you can have two systems operating side by side. That's basically what you're seeing there. I'm not going to touch anything on that screen. The default settings are fine. You don't have to worry about that if you've just got one pressure monitor. In fact, generally you don't have to touch any of the settings. The unit has been designed around the French regulations. It's the ED6307 guidelines that's been designed around. Now we have to tell the unit what we have connected to our enclosure. I'm going to concentrate on the internal pressure sensor here. The wireless sensor is actually connected to the same thing, so it doesn't really, we don't have to change any settings for that, but I'm just looking at the internal sensor. So if I click on settings, this little settings icon in the corner, it's going to give us the target pressure. Now that is important later on when we're using the EAR valve. I'm going to say we have one EACM. So that's a French term. That's about that's an air entry. It's just a fixed air entry for letting let air into the enclosure. I'm going to say we have one. You don't have them in the UK, really, you just have them in France. There is one personnel entry, and actually we don't have a material entry, so I'm going to leave that off and I'm going to submit that. Okay. Again, I'm not going to make any changes to the wireless sensor because it's on the same zone as the internal. If you had a separate zone and you was monitoring the flow through that, you could add the details for that zone. The purpose of setting these two numbers, the number of EACMs and number of personnel entries, is that now the unit knows how to calculate the airflow into the enclosure based on the pressure reading from that sensor. So we're using the internal pressure sensor, and based on the number of EACM, personnel entries and material entries, it can actually calculate the airflow into the enclosure. Just going back to what we touched on earlier, the way it calculates it is from, if we take a look at the EACM data, excuse me, when the pressure is 5, the regulations say there'll be a flow of about 10 meters cubed an hour. When the pressure is 10, it's about 410 meters cubed an hour. I don't know if you can see that very well on the screen. Hopefully you can, but even if you can't, I'm reading it out to you. So basically, it does linear interpolation based on the pressure measurement and calculates the flow rate. This is all according to the French regulations, the ED6307. Now I've told the pressure monitor how many entries we have on our enclosure, it will be able to calculate the airflow into the enclosure based on the pressure it's reading. So I'm going to power the fan up now and we'll see some data appear in the airflow box. So those airflow measurements are based on a calculation based on the numbers of entries we have, as we just told it, and the pressure reading it's reading.